My name is Carola, and I've been bikepacking for 1 year, visiting Christian churches all over Europe. After 1 year of biking, it was time for my last trip on the Camino de Santiago from Vigo in Spain down to Porto in Portugal. But before I left for this trip, I visited the Evangelical church Iglesias in Vigo and even got to sit down with Daniel Hofkamp, who is one of the elders of the church.
Would you say that the average Spanish person goes to church?
It's changing really fast. Spain was always a traditional Catholic country, but in the last 20 years, people are less interested in go to church. They think that religion is something of the past, and sometimes are people who are interested in religion, but not in religion itself. It's more interested sometimes in politics or in culture affairs, but not in the real relationship with Jesus. Tradition is so easy. It's go to the church 2 or 3 times per month, and it's nothing more. But we are not interested in religion. We are interested in you, in your relationship with God, because I think that this is the most important thing.
After a really great week in Vigo, it was time to say goodbye and start the last part of my bike trip. I'm about to cross into the last country of this whole trip, into Portugal, over this bridge. I can't believe it. The first biking days were honestly some of the most beautiful biking days of this whole year. So my last day of biking kind of sneaked up on me. It's really weird and hard to fathom that this is actually the last time I'm doing this, but I'm really excited because this is supposed to be a really, really nice biking day and the weather is perfect. So for the last time, I packed up my bike. Unfortunately, it didn't work that easy, but eventually I was ready to get back on the road and the weather was absolutely perfect. Unfortunately, I ran into my first problems pretty quickly as my drone disconnected from the remote, and I was so worried that it would just drop from the sky and break once the battery died. So I had everyone at home pray for me, and literally 10 seconds later, my drone landed safely. Oh my god, it worked. But this was just the tip of the iceberg, because shortly after, my GPS sent me into this creepy place which turned out to be a dead end. Okay, so I walked around this rock collecting station here for a little bit. I left my bike and walked around to find a path. There really isn't one out of here, but I found another path which I'm supposed to go on, but there's no way of getting there. This is super steep, you can't really tell on the camera. So I'm gonna have to go all the way back, take a different path, and then get there. It's so annoying. But it wouldn't be the last day if everything went right. Eventually, I did find my way out, but now everything was covered in white mud, including myself. Shortly after, I ended up at another dead end because there was a lot of flooding, which I couldn't get through. So I followed the recommendation of a local who sent me on a road my GPS didn't know, which looked fine in the beginning, but turned out to have a lot of sandy parts. I don't know why today has to be so difficult. I really wanted to end it on a good note, but it's been so annoying today. I don't know if you've ever pushed a very heavy e-bike through the sand, but let me tell you, it's one of the hardest workouts I've ever had to do until I eventually arrived at this spot, which meant that I once again had to take off all of my luggage and carry it over to a small path, which looked promising but led to a beach, so I had to bike over this tiny path until I got to this spot and once again disassembled all of my luggage. After this, I had to take a break and decided to explore the next path by foot before biking over it. So I followed the path that I was going to take from here and it brought me to a lake, so I can't really go that way. So I really can only take this random little path that's not even on a map. So let's hope it takes me somewhere good. The funniest thing just happened. I walked up front to see what this path would bring, and I ran into another German female solo bikepacker, and she showed me the right way because she was coming from that direction that I wanted to go to. So that was such a coincidence and such a huge help for me. I wish I could say that it was smooth sailing after, but especially the cobblestone streets in Portugal made it really hard to enjoy the ride. I did get some pretty views, but also ended up on a highway, which was one of the scariest moments of this whole trip. I didn't film it, but I was so glad once I got closer to Porto. This is a very annoying end to my biking day, but it kind of is a full circle. Maybe you remember the very first biking day on this tour. It looked exactly like this. I ended up having to bike in the dark, and this time I'm not biking through forest, so it's all right. I have 30 more minutes and I can't wait. And then after 6 long hours, I arrived at my Airbnb. I'm here. I can't believe I made it. I was so exhausted, but this was also such an emotional moment. This bike trip was full of challenges and brought me to my physical and emotional limits many times. But I felt really proud to have finished it. When I first told friends and family at home I wanted to e-bike around Europe, they were especially worried about the biking part because I'm not a very athletic person and didn't have much cycling experience. But through the highs and lows and many helpers God sent my way, I got to finish this. I might not have biked the whole way, but I know that this is a huge accomplishment for me, and I know I wouldn't have been able to do it without God by my side. But even though I'm not biking anymore, this is not quite the end of my trip. In my next video, I will share my visit of a surf church in Porto, so don't forget to subscribe, and I always feel so encouraged by your comments, so feel free to like the video, comment something nice, and I will see you next week.